Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Let me start with the value of negative yielding debt globally is now back below $13 trillion. This is from David Inglis. And that means that essentially we've passed peak Wizard of Oz, which was around 24th of June, I think, when I wrote about it last. Sterling, this is a 30-minute chart from FX Pip Titan, last at 128.54. It remains a murky business trading sterling. As I said in August, at the beginning of August, the key question is this: can Prime Minister Johnson self-eject Britain? Can he be stopped? And I concluded by saying this is a political calculation. And I think obviously he can't self-eject, and he can be stopped as he's being stopped now. James Melville, a short video: we didn't leave the EU on the 31st of October, and therefore, according to Mark François and Boris Johnson, the Tory party is finished. I don't think it is, actually. I think Johnson is polling quite high in point of fact, and the general election from his perspective is probably quite an attractive option. The EU 27 has now agreed that it will accept the UK's request for a Brexit flex tension until 31st January 2020. The decision is expected to be formalised through a written procedure, said Donald Tusk. Then I saw a WAG tweet: will it be a signed letter? I take you back to my article on the 5th of August that was called What's Your Road, Man? Have a look, that link is on Rich Wrap-Ups. Downing Street has confirmed the government will introduce a bill almost identical to the Lib Dem SNP bill today to push for a December election if the vote on an election fails yesterday, which it did. Exclusive, the US blocked Chinese Aramco private placement plans. That's from Amina Bakr. It shows how the Saudis are looking to push the envelope. After all, the Saudi-US deal was the basis of the whole petrodollar construct, and giving away or selling shares to the Chinese is not part of that petrodollar deal. Home Thoughts: an amazing view of sunrise at the Masai Mara from the Angama Mara deck. The day begins, taken by Purdatima Srinivasan in aid of the Mara Triangle. It really is a beautiful vista and photograph. This was the scene yesterday at the New York Stock Exchange minutes before Virgin Galactic began trading. I remember when I was much younger, and Richard Branson and his air balloon, he's always been an adventurer. I must give him credit for that. Good morning from Malindi, Kenya. This is the wonderful Peter size 10 via Jambo magazine. Malindi is a really wonderful place. We used to drive up there when we were young from Mombasa. There used to be a wonderful place. You could eat halwa, which is extremely rich, but extremely delicious with Arabic coffee. There still is a very Italian flavour. You could get a great pizza, and Dad had a few clients there, and we used to thoroughly enjoy that visit. For some reason I went back to Coriolanus, which is a play which is not that, Shakespeare play, which is not that necessarily that popular, but which I studied and thoroughly enjoyed. They lie deadly that tell you have good faces. There is a world elsewhere. I think he'll be to Rome as is the osprey to the fish, who takes it by sovereignty of nature. And finally, his injury, the jailer to his pity. This photo was taken during daybreak in September 2019. Our guide spotted this beautiful couple just as the sun was coming up, and it's a glorious hunt of the sun type photograph. Aristotle Onassis' yacht was a floating Xanadu that seduced them all. A yacht is never just a yacht. For Onassis, the Christina, which was the name of his daughter, was a palace of seduction, a place to broker deals, a celebrity honey trap, and the most conspicuous symbol of his successful shipping empire. On a visit with Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton acknowledged in one sentence both the generosity of his host and his blatant self-indulgence. "I don't think there is a man or woman on earth," he said, "who would not be seduced by the pure narcissism shamelessly flaunted on this boat." Ari, who would deploy his wolfish charm on Maria Callas, Jacqueline Kennedy, and numberless other women there, saw no edge in the remark. "I have found that to be so," he replied. Every big boat owner, puffed out with the romance of the sea and his rightful place upon it, likes to think he has created a legend. Aristotle Onassis, the Greek shipping magnate, truly did. He married Jackie Onassis on board, close to his private island of Scorpios. Kennedy, Monroe, Sinatra, Garbo, Liza Minnelli, Eva Peron, John Wayne, Rudolph Nureyev, a fistful of Rothschilds and Rockefellers, all swept down the onyx and silver staircase, swam in a marble pool that at the touch of a button rose to become a dance floor and staircase. Swam in a marble pool that at the touch of a button rose to become a dance floor, and could sit at a bar, Ari's bar, on stools upholstered with the foreskin of a minke whale. There's been nothing like it. The bar stools allowed Onassis to indulge regularly in one of his poor jokes. "Madame," he would say to female guests, "you are sitting on the largest penis in the world." Harry was not subtle. The more beautiful a man is, he observed, the more money it takes to keep her interested. We must free ourselves of the hope that the sea will ever rest. We must learn to sail in high winds. To be successful, keep looking tanned, live in an elegant building, even if you're in the cellar. Be seen in smart restaurants, even if you only nurse one drink, and if you borrow, borrow big. And on that note, one of my favorite vignettes sung by Maria Callas, "O mio Babbino, Caro." Have a listen, just 3 minutes. Political reflections. What is Trump really up to? It's almost unknowable. Caliph closure, he died like a dog, Asia Times' Pepe Escobar. He died like a dog. Trump could not have scripted a better one-liner as he got ready for his Obama bin Laden close-up in front of the whole world. The dead dog Caliph is now positioned as the ultimate foreign policy winning trophy ahead of the 2020 re-election. Cowardly Uber terrorist cornered in a dead-end tunnel, 8 helicopter gunships hovering above, dogs barking in the darkness, 3 terrified children taken as hostages. Coward detonates a suicide vest, tunnel collapses over himself and the children. A crack forensic team carrying samples of the fake Caliph's DNA apparently does its job in record time. The remains of the self-exploded target, then sealed in plastic bags, confirm it. It's Baghdadi. In the dead of night, it's time for the commando unit to go back to Erbil a 70-minute flight over northeast Syria and northwest Iraq. The compound is no more. It was turned to rubble, so it would not become a Syrian shrine for a renegade Iraqi. Significantly, Trump said about Moscow, we told them we're coming in and they said thank you for telling us, but they did not know the mission. They definitely didn't. In fact, the Russian Defense Ministry via spokesman Major General Igor Konashenkov said it had no reliable information about US servicemen conducting an operation to yet another elimination of the former Daesh leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in the Turkish-controlled part of the Idlib de-escalation zone. And on Trump's "we told them," the Russian Defense Ministry was emphatic. We know nothing about any assistance to the flight of US aircraft to the Idlib de-escalation zone's airspace in the course of this operation. According to ground sources in Syria, a prevalent rumor in Idlib is that the dead dog in Barisha could be Abu Muhammad Salameh, the leader of Haras al-Din, a minor subgroup of al-Qaeda in Syria. Haras al-Din has not issued any statement about it. There's no plausible explanation for Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi for years enjoying the freedom of shuttling back and forth between Syria and Iraq, always evading the formidable surveillance capabilities of the US government. There's also no plausible explanation for that famous convoy of 53 brand new white Toyota Hiluxes crossing the desert from Syria to Iraq in 2014, crammed with flag-waving ISIS-Daesh jihadis on their way to capture Mosul, also evading the cornucopia of US satellites covering the Middle East 24/7. And there's no way to bury the 2012 US Defense Intelligence Agency leaked memo that explicitly named the West, Gulf monarchies and Turkey as seeking a Salafist principality in Syria, opposed significantly by Russia, China and Iran, the key poles of Eurasia integration. True, the fake Caliph has been proclaimed definitely dead at least 5 times, starting in December 2016. Yet the timing now could not be more convenient. There will be no balkanization of Syria. The last remaining pocket to be cleared of jihadis is Erbil. Sooner or later, the Syrian army will get there with Russian air power support. The deep state might, but Trump in an electoral year would never risk a hot war over a few illegally occupied oil fields. The Died as a Dog movie can also be interpreted as the liquidation of a formerly useful asset that was a valued component of the gift that keeps on giving, the never-ending global war on terror. Other scarecrows and other movies await. And then Rukmina Callimachi in the New York Times, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, ISIS leader known for his brutality, is dead at 48. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the cunning and enigmatic black-clad leader of the Islamic State who transformed a flagging insurgency into a global terrorist network that drew tens of thousands of recruits from 100 countries, has died at 48. Son of a pious Sunni family from the Iraqi district of Samarra, evaded capture for nearly a decade by hewing to a series of extreme security measures even when meeting with his most trusted associates. They even made me move my wristwatch, recounted Ismail al-Ithawi, a top aide who was captured last year. Baghdadi's concern was always, who will betray him? He didn't trust anyone. Much of the world first learned of al-Baghdadi in 2014 when his men overran 1/3 of Iraq and half of neighboring Syria and declared the territory a caliphate, claiming to revive the Muslim theocracy that ended with the fall of the Ottoman Empire. In the interim, the promise of a physical caliphate electrified tens of thousands of followers who flocked to Syria to serve his imagined state. At its peak, the group's black flag flew over major population centers, including Mosul. Territory spread east into the plains of Nineveh, where the extremists turned centuries-old churches into bomb factories, reached north into the mountains of Sinjar, whose women were singled out for sexual enslavement, extended south to the Syrian oil fields of Deir al-Zur and the majestic colonnades of Palmyra. A Jordanian pilot was burned alive in a scene filmed by overhead drones. Men accused of being spies were drowned in cages as underwater cameras captured their last tortured gasp. Others were crushed under the treads of a T-55 tank, or strung up by their feet inside a slaughterhouse and butchered like animals. The Islamic State collected taxes and saw to it that garbage was picked up. Couples who got married could expect to receive a marriage license printed on Islamic State stationery. Militants harnessed the internet to connect with thousands of followers around the globe, making them feel as if they were virtual citizens of the Caliphate. That allowed ISIS to multiply its lethality by remotely inspiring attacks carried out by men who never set foot in a training camp. In this fashion, ISIS was responsible for the deaths of thousands of people around the world, a shooting at an office party in San Bernardino, California, an attack on a Christmas market in Germany, a truck attack in Nice, France on Bastille Day, suicide bombings at churches on Easter Sunday in Sri Lanka. Baghdadi was central to giving voice to ISIS's project in a manner that achieved startling resonance with vulnerable individuals globally, said Joshua Geltzer. Born Ibrahim Awad Ibrahim Ali al-Badri began life in a dry and desolate plain in the village of al-Jallam in central Iraq. High school transcript shows that his highest grade was in art, 95 out of 100. Yes, he had a spiritual gift. His soul was connected to the mosque. That's how sweet his voice was. It was so sweet that you could feel the sweetness, and it would attract others into the mosque. When you stand up and recite the prayer, the smell of your breath will make the angels fly away, he reportedly told Mr. Ismail when the mosque owner began smoking. He was then in this Camp Buka, according to declassified Pentagon records. Inside the tent where they were both assigned at Camp Buka, al-Baghdadi was in his 30s and went by the nom de guerre Abu Dua, recalled his fellow detainee. Pentagon records indicate that al-Baghdadi was released in late 2004. For years it disappeared from view. Then in 2009, security forces recovered a cache of documents in a safe house used by militants and found the name Abu Dua on the group's personnel list. The meaning of the new nom de guerre was not lost on his future followers. Abu Bakr was the first Caliph after the Prophet Muhammad's death in ancient Arabia and is credited with the wave of Islamic expansion that followed. Then talking about rape and saying that he was actually personally involved in the rape of some of these women. Abu Musab was killed, he said. Abu Omar was killed, but Abu Bakr lasted. This is the burnt-out home where al-Baghdadi was born in the village of al-Jallam. This is a photograph of ISIS fighters in Raqqa, Syria in 2014. A family fleeing Kayara, Iraq in 2016. A photograph of a young al-Baghdadi who was born Ibrahim Awad Ibrahim Ali al-Badri. On his records at a school he attended in Samarra. Youths in Najaf, Iraq are seen watching news on Saturday about the possible death of al-Baghdadi. And finally a view of Camp Buka, where al-Baghdadi was detained for 11 months according to declassified Pentagon records. My article over the weekend was called From Russia with Love, and it was all about this recent rapprochement and engagement between Putin and Africa. Have a read if you haven't seen it already. Joshua Wong has become the only candidate banned from running in the upcoming district council elections in Hong Kong. He previously told German media, Hong Kong ist das neue Berlin, referencing Ich bin ein Berliner, the speech given by the United States President John F. Kennedy. Lebanon needs solutions in days to avoid economic crisis, says the central bank governor. Association of Banks in Lebanon has said lenders will not reopen their doors until a political solution is found to the crisis, but the closures have increased uncertainty and Fed worries that an financial crisis is looming. In separate comments to Reuters, Salameh said there was no plan to impose capital controls and the central bank remained committed to a US dollar peg in place since 1997. The dollarization of deposits may have increased to as much as 79% of total deposits in recent weeks, the IIF said. Shortage has forced importers to buy dollars from exchange bureaus, leading to the emergence of a parallel rate that is hovering around 1,650 per US dollar compared to the official rate of 1,507. I would have thought buying the dollar at 1,650 is an absolute no-brainer. I wrote about this in an article on the 21st of October called The New Economy of Anger. I said the phenomenon is spreading like wildfire, in large part because of the tinder-dry conditions underfoot. Prolonged standoffs eviscerate economies, reducing opportunities and accelerate the negative feedback loop. Currency markets, euro dollar 108.93, dollar index 97.795, Japanese yen 108.97, Swiss franc 0.9947, the pound 128.54, the Australian dollar 0.6855, Indian rupee 70.721, South Korean won 1165.24, Brazilian real below 4, 399.06, Egyptian pound 16.1282, and the rand 14.55. Dollar index chart seen here. I'm in two minds about the dollar now, actually. A lot will depend on what comes out of the commentary after this week's rate cut. Euro dollar in the Draghi era. This chart is from Holger. Have a look at that. We're last at 110.89. I wrote about this in September 2012, Super Mario, the Euro's savior. I said then what Draghi has done is remove the tail risk from the euro area. Last year, Bernanke was asked why people hold gold, and he said, as protection against what we call tail risks. Really, really bad outcomes. I do not expect a sharp rebound in the euro area, but the downside, the vortex risk, has been backstopped, and that's the major achievement of Draghi, whether you agree with him or not. Gold, let's take a look at where we are there. 1491, we're back below 1500. Crude oil, $55.56 last. Emerging markets, Comunicación A68152019. Argentina is not just tightening capital controls, it is virtually closing the entire exchange market, a sign of running out of reserves. That's from De La Cal. That took me back to Evita. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Argentina, since 2001, the peso has lost 98% of its value against the dollar, printing money for the people. Lacal again. The ancestral home of modern humans is in Botswana, study finds. Scientists claim to have traced the ancestral home region of all living humans to a vast wetland that sprawled over much of modern-day Botswana and served as an oasis in an otherwise parched expanse of Africa. The swathe of land south of the Zambezi River became a thriving home to Homo sapiens 200,000 years ago, the researchers suggest, and sustained an isolated founder population of modern humans for at least 70,000 years. We have known for a long time that modern humans originated in Africa roughly 200,000 years ago, but what we hadn't known until this study was where exactly. Conclusions have raised eyebrows among some experts are based on an analysis of 1,217 samples of mitochondrial DNA, the genetic material in tiny battery-like mitochondria found in most cells. All of the DNA used in the study came from people living in southern Africa today. How interesting is that? In the area, they found that a body of water the size of New Zealand, Lake Madakigadi, once dominated the area, but started to break up into a massive wetland 200,000 years ago. It would have been very lush, and it would have provided a suitable habitat for modern humans and wildlife to have lived. Very interesting. Q2 results. Bharti Airtel's Africa unit posts biggest ever operating profit in the quarter ended September because of higher revenue, improved operating leverage and cost cuts. Operating profit for the continent's second largest mobile operator rose 12.4% year on year to $372 million during the period. Margins expanded 100 basis points to 44.1%. Africa unit's revenue and earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization in constant currency terms rose a little more than 11% each during the quarter. Free cash flow can jump nearly twofold to $166 million, aided by a fall in interest payment as debt was reduced. Airtel Africa's net debt fell to $3.2 billion from $4 billion in the preceding 3 months. Goldman Sachs has a buy rating on the stock. That's very interesting. The shares were issued at $1.01 a piece and are trading 29% lower on the London Stock Exchange. That's probably worth a little look. South African all shares up 5.74% year to date. Dollar Rand 14.56 and getting closer to testing that key area, which is 14.50. And if we break that, we're headed towards a 13 handle. But in the background, you've got Moody's and a possible downgrade to junk status. Egyptian pound 16.1296, EGX 30 up 9.71% year to date. Nigeria all share down 16.05% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index minus 13.85% year to date. The IMF's Abebe Amro Selassie had an engaging and constructive dialogue with President Uhuru Kenyatta in Nairobi yesterday. That was a tweet from the IMF handle. They discussed the economic outlook for sub-Saharan Africa and how the IMF can support Kenya's growth agenda. In a Bloomberg report that Money Academy captioned, IMF on Kenya, our view is that debt on current policies is sustainable. But to have more room for public investments, government should raise tax collections, increasing the ratio of revenue to GDP by about 50 to 100 basis points over 3 to 4 years. The issue is if you've inflated GDP so as to massage the ratios, therefore increasing the ratio of revenue is, in my view, a non sequitur. Finally, this is from Clan Sawe, the monk of Haile Selassie Avenue has spoken. Kenya's GDP is a giant hoax driven by large public sector spending and no growth in productive sectors. I tweeted in response I was wondering for how long he would risk his hard-won reputation at the altar of the fast and loose, and folks without a plan, other than don't worry, be happy, wear Versace. Kenya government is in the process of transferring its 20% stake in Mumias to Kakamega County government. The problem with that is they're relinquishing a stake which is actually a liability. Vivo Energy gets green light to acquire fast food chain KFC. KFC is the third leading fast food chain in Kenya with a 15% market share behind InScore 16% and Java 34% and has at least 24 outlets across major towns in the country. I wrote about this in September 2011 when they opened the first KFC, and this is a photograph from that first KFC. I called it the biggest gig in Nairobi because there was an enormous queue to get in there. And then I concluded in an article in the Star that KFC makes the bull case. Kenya shilling at 103.60, Nairobi all share up 7.83% year to date, and the NSE 20 down 11.13% year to date. Thank you for listening.